Why is financial education so important for midwives and birth professionals? A legal disclaimer we put at the beginning of all of our presentations. This information is for general and educational use only. Content is not intended to substitute for professional, clinical, or legal advice. We strive to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, but make no promises and guarantees it works for your local unique situation. Financial education is something very near and dear to me. Business, finances, as midwives, birth professionals, we have to understand in our own personal life, money and finances, and in our businesses so we can serve our families and communities at a larger scale. So financial education is about sustainability, growth, long-term success of your personal life with your family, your legacy creation, and your business. The primary focus is about passionate care. We want access to everyone for our services. We want everyone to have the best birth outcomes, to have full scope women's health care. But if you don't have a strong financial backing to your business or have the capabilities to give once in a while a lady a free birth because your financial strength is there, it creates barriers to access to our services and better outcomes for moms and babies. So we're going to talk in this section about the critical role of financial literacy that has to do with making birth workers in their personal and professional life stronger. So running a sustainable practice. I have been a nurse midwife for over 12 years and been in the birth world since age 16. So I've done home, birth center, hospital. My 3 kids were born at home. I want my 3 sons to have access to midwives and choices for the future. And we have to be able to give birth workers education and knowledge around business and finances to make that happen. That is my passion. That is my love. That is the heart of what I do. We need to be able to make competitive salaries. Like, we need to be able to give our families what they need, our vacations, cover inflation cost. And so you have to have a competitive fee rate to charge to pass on to the families. And it gets tricky because if you're cash, if you're insurance, if you're a nonprofit, if you're sliding fee schedules, there's a lot of variables with fee schedules and offering the services. But we have to, there's too many midwives out there that have never done a budget, don't have a clue where their money's going in and out, and then they personally, financially, they start giving away their time for free because they don't know how to fix the problem because of that lack of business and financial education. You need to be able to cover your salary, your supplies, your overhead, the cushions for transfers, adding on a new midwife to your team and training them. You have to make sure that your budgets and your fee schedules accurately fit the market and the standards, but they also fit the challenges of running a successful business in the backdrop. Tracking expenses, you have to be able to know where the money's going, coming in and out. You can use a simple spreadsheet, you could do QuickBooks, you can get a bookkeeper depending on how big your practice is. A lot of home birth practices will just do it themselves, but you got to keep real time monthly. You can't just do it at the end of the year. You're going to forget things, you're going to miss things. You got to work closely with an accountant because there's a lot of deductions and write-offs and certain expenses you can use for your business versus personal life, so then it's pre-taxed from your personal income. So there's a lot of things to think about with tracking expenses, and we have a great other courses on bookkeeping and finances in this direction. But if you don't know where your money is going in your personal and business life, you don't have control of your financial stability. Budgeting and forecasting. This is tricky when it comes to midwifery compared to other businesses. We have to think in 9 to 12 month increments compared to any other business. You have to think about pregnancy and birth and planning and vacations. And I want a partner, but for me to have a partner, I need to have the money to pay for the partner, but then I don't want to take double the volume of births right away. Depending on how your fee schedule is set up, cash, usually you get a deposit the second visit and then you get paid around 32 weeks. But if they're insurance, you have a huge lag. It could be a budget. If you're heavy as a birth center and you're doing mostly insurance, you could have a lag of 1.5 to 2 years of money. You take care of these people, you wait for insurance to pay. That's a big cushion of emergency and funds and a revolving door that you have to plan and work around. So midwives and birth workers have very unique situations when we're planning around pregnancy, birth, and particularly insurance reimbursement. You have to make good budgets that reflect those unique trends. Managing cash flow and income stability, like I can't stress this enough because few midwives have emergency accounts, few midwives have cushions and reserves and an average stability level of this is a break-even point, this is where I want to be at. Birth is unpredictable. Like maintaining a consistent cash flow is pretty challenging with our birth world unless you're consistently always taking 6 clients a month every single month and you're always taking cash and you charge the same to everybody. But most midwives and doulas and birth workers are not set up like that. So if you're doing insurance, you're billing based on the services. So you have the unpredictability of deliveries and transfers and risk out, because we'd had times where we calculated in our budget 15-20% are going to risk out throughout pregnancy, and then there would be a couple months that half, 3/4 of them risked out for one reason or another. And if you're insurance, that just kills your budget. And guess what? When they risk out, you still have lots of work to do. You have to manage, you have to collaborate, you have to coordinate. It's not compensated the same as those birth charges. With insurance reimbursement, 70% of your charges you're getting are at birth time. And if they don't do the birth with you, even if they do prenatal postpartum care, it greatly impacts the consistency of your cash flow. So I talk a lot about, this is that business education. I want you to diversify assets and income streams into your business just as much into your personal life of diversifying risk with investments. And this is that education we talk about. I really want midwives to be able to plan and to reduce their risk and to reduce burnout, and have multiple income streams and be able to serve people how they want to, not based on how the money is forcing them to do it. Know when to save and invest. This is a hard conversation with midwives and birth workers because most of them aren't ready for it. I have coined like a midwife Maslow hierarchy of need, and most midwives are in the bottom ring. They're in survival mode. It's fight or flight. They're trying to survive. They can't even think about anything but if they're lucky to get a break and luckily to get some downtime. Sleeping, seeing their family is a luxury. And so I'm trying to get midwives to gradually go up those rings of the midwife Maslow hierarchy of need, where we are being able to have hobbies and we're being able to have passions outside of midwifery. We're being able to have sustainable practices. We're being able to figure out our dream practices in a team and serving a community in a larger scale and living our lives how we want to. You're working because you want to. You're not working because you have to. That's a different mentality, but it takes building from the basics, changing habits, learning things, reflecting. This cycle that I'm in is because of what I put myself into, which is hard to think about. We can change, we can improve, we can get creative. Like I do a lot in the beginning with time management, looking at things differently, trying to group together and make things more productive so that the valuable time that they have, we can get some extras back. It's phenomenal to just see people when they start really embracing this change, how successful they are. But until we get midwives that really want to open themselves to the business education side and really want to start at the basic level to improve themselves, it's very, very difficult to get that save and invest in yourself, in your family, in your business mentality to occur. Understanding insurance and reimbursement systems. I get it. Most private out-of-hospital midwives do not do insurance reimbursement, but I do challenge you. It sets up a huge barrier to our families to not accept insurance. Even if it's out-of-network benefits as a starting point for you and getting a good billing company, you're going to make more money than you would cash, and the families typically are going to pay less. So our goal is to increase access to midwifery, and we have to do it in baby steps. Like I'm not saying coding, go in network, take a crappy reimbursement, take a bunch of Medicaid people, your numbers aren't going to work for your budget. But I'm talking about step by step. Maybe you take a small percentage of sliding fee schedule and Medicaid clients so that you can serve that industry. You work on lobbying to get insurance reimbursement and the Medicaid contracts a little higher. You outsource a billing company. You pool together a bunch of midwives and resources to hire someone like Marnie with Innovation Billing so that she can negotiate great contracts for your midwifery practices. You create a co-op, a coalition, because there's more leverage with the insurance world when you have a group of you and you have more patients to leverage and say, hey, we do 600-700 deliveries with Blue Cross Blue Shield patients that potentially could be using their service or getting an exemption. But we need to get creative. I know most midwives can't stand the insurance world. I'm in the same thing, but it's our healthcare system. Most of our families are very dependent. If they want a home birth, they need to have their insurance cover it. Otherwise, they're going to deliver in the hospital, even if they didn't want to be there. So we have to figure out a way to get past these barriers. So we want to identify eligible insurance plans. We want to talk what's in our area. What are their fee rates? Is it make sense to be in network, out of network, or strictly cash in our area? But do the research. I don't want you just to have a hurdle because everybody else in my area doesn't accept cash or doesn't accept insurance, so I'm only cash, so that I'm just going to continue that. Laws change, regs change. Each person, based on their education type, can have different contracts with insurance companies. Different regions are different. Your biller, like, don't just assume that nobody can get it in your area. I've been shocked. Everybody uses the same billers, and then they didn't have a good one that knew how to do that and negotiate it. So all I encourage midwives to do is just look into it, see if it makes sense based on your budgets and what they can offer. And even if you're out of network and just starting there and getting an outsourced biller and making the numbers work to offer that service, just get started. Anytime, any care, whether it's for insurance reimbursement, cash, protecting your license and your practice, you need to do proper coding, proper documentation, diagnoses. So a lot of CPMs, direct entry midwives, the medical world is very foreign. The terminology, the insurance world, the diagnosis codes, nurses and nurse midwives and people that have been part of the healthcare system, it's a little more familiar, but we have great billing and coding courses. We have great resources. So anything you can think of to want to learn about when it comes to business and finances, we have available with our resources. We have one-on-one consulting. We have a lot of options out there. So I want you to just get started with the knowledge and education. Maximize your reimbursement. The whole point is you make more money. The families owe directly less out of pocket. They're already paying monthly premiums for the insurance. I want you to make more money, and I want you to serve people in your community at a larger scale with a team and make a bigger impact. Financial education advocates for you, for your families, for sustainability of your practice. And it is hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's really, really important. So personal financial management, it's just as much about this financial education for your business as it is for your personal life. I want you to have a retirement account. I want you to have different insurances that protect you. Life insurance, disability, long-term care, Roth accounts, 401ks, health insurance accounts, flex spending accounts. There's all these buckets you can utilize that have tax savings, that has financial security, because you can't work forever. As midwives, too many times I see it where they give, and they're in their 50s and 60s, and now they want to start retirement planning, and they should have started 30 years ago, because that compounding effect, it's so much harder with what they're making and the challenges they're in. Many midwives just work and work until their bodies can't do it, and then they go live with their kids, or they really cut down on their finances and live simple because they just don't have that financial reserves and knowledge and education to prep them to be successful in retirement. And in your day-to-day personal, like, I want you to have a vacation. I want you to have budgets. I want you to have emergency accounts. I want you to be able to, if your kids want to do sports and want to go travel and want to do things, like, personal financial management isn't just about retirement planning. It's about working smarter with your money versus working harder, and it's just disappearing and you don't understand Managing debt and student loans. Some midwives have student loans, some don't. But credit cards and house and car and any other debt that you accrue, they have different interest rates. Some are fixed, some are variable. And it's overwhelming when you start having more and more cash flow that has to be paid every month. You're struggling just to pay those bills across the country right now post COVID. The credit card debts are the highest ever. A lot of people had variable interest rate in their houses, and the interest rates have went from 3 to 6, 7%, which may not seem like much, but it's literally doubling most people's house payments. So these are those things that, like, if you knew and you could, like, learn history and learn, like, I feel like I have a crystal ball now. Like, we refinanced our house, we fixed it, we had a variable interest rate. I saw the trends coming. I locked in at 3% a year and a half before the interest rate skyrocketed, and I just saved my family every single month a double house payment. So, like, there is so much to consider when thinking about these resources and planning, that you can really change your future. You can have more control over it. You can't, I'm not saying you're going to be the one that determines the interest rate, but you can also see the trends of where things are going. Helping your kids, if they're looking for doing school and degrees, you can now have better education with them about a risk-benefit analysis of how much is school going to cost, what are you going to make every year, how long is it going to take pay back, what are interest rates, what are the payment plans, and they can make a better decision of that degree, that training, that pathway. Does it make financial sense for them short-term, long-term? Maybe there's other ways to do it, some community college, some trade schools, working for a while to save up some money so they don't have all this massive debt, because our young generation is just absolutely getting crippled by student loan debt. Like, it's the one thing that if you go into bankruptcy, you still have to pay your student loans to the federal government back. So, like, these are part of those educational pieces that people just don't realize that really cripple your future. Fewer and fewer people are even being able to retire and be financially free, and I want to change that. So retirement planning, especially as midwives, business owners, independent contractors, you have so much access to more tax deductions, retirement programs than someone else who's employed W-2. I was a financial planner for a little while with Northwestern Mutual, and my vision was to give financial education to nurses, midwives, women, birth workers, and I just couldn't be part of that corporate system. I was selling products. I wasn't truly being able to educate. So there's so many cool tools out there. So I connect you with some great financial planners that I can be the consultant and give people the skinny and the truth, and then just honestly, like, hey, this one's an independent financial planner. They own their own company. This one works for this company. So you're going to get more of a spiel and push because these are the products in their toolkit. These are the products in their toolkit. You want a team. So the whole point of a business consultant is to accelerate your success. I've done years and years of research and planning and connections with great people all over the country that will really, instead of you spending 6-8 hours of research and then weeks and weeks of interviews, I can tell you some great people that other midwives and birth workers have worked with, I've worked with, and accelerate your success. Insurance coverage. This one is fascinating to me because so much of our world is instant gratification. We don't plan for the future. We don't plan for what ifs. And you can get an insurance for everything. Like, I'm not saying I want you to get insurance for every single thing, but I want you to know what all your insurance options are, and then do a risk-benefit analysis for you and determine, do I need umbrella insurance over my whole family and my car? Do I need a house insurance? Do I need car insurance? Do I need disability? Do I need long-term care? Do I need malpractice? Do I need life insurance? Do I need a revocable living trust that protects my assets versus doing malpractice insurance? Like, we would have those conversations with you. Like, I don't want you to memorize. Like, you don't have time to just first spend years and years learning business and finances. My goal is I'm giving you the Cliff Note versions of what I have been learning the last 10 years after my burnout and my transition, so that I can make this lingo as simple and relatable as midwives and birth workers can understand the importance. So few midwives will choose malpractice insurance, but we talk about different ways to protect your assets in your personal life and your business. Disability, especially long-term, is huge for midwives. I can tell you midwives that were making $500,000 doing their private practices, serving their community, they get in a car accident, they did have they had a high deductible insurance, but it crumbled everything. They went bankrupt because they couldn't be a midwife anymore, and they'd lost everything, and they're living in their kid's basement on disability now. And so I think there's ways to reduce our risk of potential damages to access for ourselves with insurance, our families, and our businesses. So tax planning, like this one hit me hard because I was the average midwife with my first private practice, and I just paid them. I didn't know my deductions. I was tipping the government. I say to people, quit tipping the government. Like, there's so many deductions out there as business owners we can use. You should be writing off as much as you legally can. Work with an accountant, work with a financial planner, and strategize it, because there's certain things to roll over. There's certain ways to pay yourself. There's certain business entity types that are more tax favorable than others depending on your situation. So it's not simple. This is why your mastermind team for your personal life and your business should have an accountant, a lawyer, a business planner, a marketer, a biller. Like, there's certain things that the laws change every year. They're constantly changing, and you want someone that's an expert in your local state area and keeping up with the trends and regulations. Like, there was a federal law that got passed last year for LLCs that you have to, by the end of the year, submit your personal information and your business information into this other government organization filing system. And if you didn't have an accountant, you didn't keep up with the trends, I guarantee you most people that own LLCs do not know about this and have not done it, and you're getting massive fines. If they actually want to enforce it, it could crumble a lot of businesses, and they don't even know about it. So it's not just about tax savings. It's about keeping up with regulations, keeping your businesses compliant, and you don't want to get stuck if you're not. I see a lot of this from people transitioning from W-2 to 1099. They're used to their paychecks taking out their taxes. So then when they're getting paid on their own business, they aren't putting to the side their own taxes. They're not accounting for it. They're not paying them quarterly and estimating what they owe. And then at the end of the year, they have tons of money they owe, or they file their taxes and they didn't estimate, and they have a bunch of fees and they have a bunch of money, and then they're like stuck with the IRS and this federal and state taxes because they didn't account accurately for those tax plans. So building trust with your clients and business relationships, referrals, collaborations, networking opportunities, like, this is part of that financial education. You want clear pricing, you want it on your website, you want fee schedules. Like, most people that are medical practitioners, particularly certified nurse midwives, there's certain laws protecting patients. When you're alternative practitioners, and depending on your state, it's a little more vague on that requirements for price transparency, so that there's not misunderstandings. But especially the No Surprise Act that was passed a few years ago, it's more meant for someone traveling and getting surprise bills because they only had an in-network program, and they got seen somewhere and they were out of network and owed a bunch of money and didn't understand the decision they were making. But I think it could be applied to midwives and birth centers in the right situation. So it's really, really important to, at your initial consults, all over your website, open on your front desk, your receptionist, she can give them the list of all the fee schedules, codes, and you can note and you can sign and say, we reviewed our fee schedule, they didn't have any questions and concerns, so that there's transparency. You have a cash rate, you have an insurance rate, you have a sliding fee schedule rate. You can have multiple fee schedules, but you have to have a policy written for every single fee schedule of how someone fits it. So cash is cash up front. They paid in full before the services were rendered. Insurance, they gave you their card at the beginning. I processed their insurance. Sliding fee schedule, it's based on an income level, based on criteria you put into place. So You just have to be fair. You can't discriminate, and you got to be open and transparent to the best of your ability. I understand in the birth world, there's unpredictable services, but at least you're listing potential complications in your fee schedule. Like, hey, if you transfer versus deliver with me, it turns into one-on-one support. If I have to do stitches, if I have to use postpartum hemorrhage meds, if we have a newborn resuscitation, like these are the charges for those things, so that there is an honest conversation. Client financial options. So we talked about the multiple fee schedules. You could do referral programs. You could do repeat client loyalty programs. You could do some discounts. You just have to be consistent however you do it with all of your clients. That's the only difference I stress to people. So you can have multiple fee schedules. The average midwife has 3, but you can do as many as you want. It just depends on how complicated. Maybe you have an Amish Mennonite fee schedule. They get home visits. They barely call, so you can adjust for the cost of marketing, the cost of after hours services. You can have a little bit of a lower rate because of their community and how you want to serve them. So you just have to look at your community, how you're serving, where you want to go, who's your ideal client, and what is the market charging, and what can there's some rich Amish Mennonite communities all over the country, and there's some that are very impoverished. So maybe you serve them, but then you've also got some other income streams to make up for it. So contracts and agreements, this is not the fun part. None of this stuff, most midwives are like, yes, I love learning about money and finances and business and contracts and legal stuff. We go into it because we love serving our clients and making access to midwifery more sustainable. Like, we all have the same core being, whether we're in the hospital, home, birth center, our educational pathway. As midwives, we want people to have better birth outcomes. So we have to keep that alignment when we're having discussions and we have different perspectives in place. So my passion, yes, I have been serving as a midwife for a very long time, but I see the value of financial business education for increasing access to midwifery services. But it comes down to your agreements, your contracts. Like, if you don't have informed consents, you don't have the right HIPAA forms, you don't have disclaimers of your knowledge, no malpractice insurance, the potential risk of choosing home, birth center, hospital, and having that good discussion and those protective contracts throughout your care, you're going to be vulnerable. If there's state mandated procedures, vaccinations, testing, you have to have forms that are educating them, and they have the right to choose to decline, but you need to have it in writing, because I don't want you to get in trouble. They say they never offered it to me, and there's no documentation of you discussing it, and there's no documentation of that consent that was signed and they were educated. So it's really, really important. I've seen too many midwives, when I do consulting stuff, 90% of it is reactive. It's already happened. The mistakes already occurred. How do I get the right lawyer? How do I defend myself? And I would much, much rather have proactive consulting meetings. I want to help you get a strong foundation to your business, to your personal life. There's so much we can do. Growth and professional development. It's hard for midwives to think about this when they're in survival mode. I 100% get it. I was there. Baby steps. Slow changes make a big impact over time. So all I'm suggesting is start improving your stuff. Knowledge is power when you apply it and you utilize it. So something simple as stopping to listen to the radio when you're doing home visits and driving everywhere, and start listening to podcasts, start listening to business, financial, education. We have a YouTube channel. We have a lot of resources out there that you can just listen to and start learning about business and start slowly learning this new world. I get it's like drinking from a fire hose in the beginning, but after you listen to it a few times and you start absorbing it, it gets way easier. Just like the first time you caught a baby and you started midwifery school, it was so foreign, it's a different world, and now you're an expert. So just take some time, transition, invest in yourself. You are your greatest asset. That's why we talk about life insurance is so important, because a lot of us are breadwinners to our families, and if something happened to us where we couldn't make the income for them anymore, we want our families to be okay when we're not able to do that. So financial education allows us to grow and expand. There's certifications, there's trainings, there's workshops, webinars, I want you to be able to think smarter, not harder, about passive income streams, about diversifying your assets by planning short-term, long-term emergency accounts, investing in certain unique buckets that are out there that are great for just midwives and birth workers compared to other populations. I want you to grow your practice. I want you to think more like a business owner versus being self-employed. I want you to structure systems and teams and slowly transition where you're not the front line so that the money only comes in if you're exchanging your time. We talk a lot in our other presentations about cash flow quadrants, which is the different ways that revenue can come into your life. The one that most people are familiar with is exchanging their time for money. And I want you to start getting into exchanging your knowledge and your relationships for money. So I want you to start getting where you're creating businesses and income streams and opportunities that your team can grow and they're serving on the front lines, and then you get a team that helps you run the business so that you're the final say how things happen, but you have a well-oiled machine. So that my dream is midwives go on a vacation for 2-3 months from their business and it's still running just as beautifully as when they left. I can tell you I do not know a single midwife at this point that can do that. So I want to change that mentality. I want to get more midwives that are business owners, not self-employed. And it's even a hard concept for midwives to understand the difference because they argue with me as a 1099 and as a LLC, a sole single member LLC. I am a business owner. I'm like, yes, you own a business on a state level, but I'm talking about the mentality of a business ownership. If you stop working, your business doesn't exist. You are self-employed because you're still working instead of for another company, you're still working for yourself. I want to transition midwives and birth workers where they create teams and systems and they leverage their knowledge and expertise to get bigger scale practices going and getting more midwives. We have too much burnout. We're losing our midwives. We're losing our birth centers, and we have to break this cycle. So as an overall conclusion, I am deeply, deeply passionate about business and financial knowledge. It's a key to the success and sustainability of midwifery and birth workers as a whole. We have to understand in our personal and our professional life, billing, budgets, insurance, financial projections, emergency accounts, insurance tools, taxes. I can't stress this enough for increasing access, preventing burnout, for living the life that you dream of versus feeling cornered and trapped. We have to have business and financial education. It's just a must. So I want sustainable midwifery practices. I want increased trust, quality improvement, satisfaction. I want growth and sustainability. And my dream in 15, 20 years is that a third of women deliver at home, a third of women deliver in the birth center, and a third deliver in the hospital. And the only reason they're delivering in the hospital is because they have to be there because they're truly high risk. Like, that is my dream. And I'm working really hard in the United States and around the world to get that model of care implemented. We need to leverage these settings and these situations for each person's individual needs. But until we get more midwives that have business financial education, none of those things can happen.